Hey, LinkedIn. Welcome to Business Unusual. I'm Susie Jackson. I'm a news editor here at LinkedIn. And this is a show about how coronavirus is having a big impact on the way we work. I am live with you from my home. Like many of you, I'm working from home for a month, maybe more. Who knows these days? I want to know if you're home too. Tell me in the comments, tell me in the stream. We're trying to figure all this out together, trying to figure out a new normal. Let me know how it's going for you. We want to hear from you throughout the show. So, like I said, jump into the comments or post on LinkedIn with the hashtag business unusual. This week, parents have had an especially interesting time figuring out a new normal, myself included. Schools have been closing all over the country. Working parents are home with a lot of new little coworkers who maybe aren't so schooled in office etiquette. I myself have two small children at home with me now. They were going to join me on the show, but nap time didn't work out with that today. So that's kind of just how it goes. Every day is day to day for me, maybe for you too. When LinkedIn first started talking about a working from home policy, my colleagues were great. They were really supportive, but also kind of adorably clueless. You could tell who had kids and who didn't. A lot of people were talking about really silver lining bright side moments. They were saying how adorable it would be if, when you're on a conference call, your kid comes and does something cute or wants to type or whatever. And I appreciated that sentiment, but I immediately feared the reality, which is how am I going to find quiet, productive time to actually do work when I have a 3-year-old who's going to see me on my laptop and immediately want to come over and write a letter to Santa right now? When I have a 1-year-old who's going to be pointing at the raisins on the shelf in the kitchen that he can't reach and just telling me, Mom, 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 over and over again. Those things aren't really cute for me in the moment. That's definitely not cute for my colleagues to watch on VC, and especially not when it could happen at any time over months. These fears were even before the school closings started sweeping across the country. I don't have school-aged children, so I am unfortunately, not in the position of some other parents who are having to learn how to homeschool their kids while also simultaneously trying to learn how to even work from home productively themselves over an extended amount of time. I want to know, are you in this situation? Tell me in the comments what's going on with you. What is working? What's hard? How are you? Do you need some advice? Do you need some help? Do you need a place to vent? Before we jump into some of the comments we're already seeing on LinkedIn, I wanted to introduce you to another parent who's working from home with 2 small children, my colleague Dave Pond.
Hey, Susie, how are you?
Good, Dave. How are you?
Good. Getting through everything with kids in the house and trying to get work done.
Great. Dave has 2 small children just like me. I don't see them in the background there, so I don't know if you're hiding really well or if you've banished them or what, but I'm really glad that Dave can be with us today. He's going to be bringing our guests in and out. He's going to be showing any graphics on the screen that we're talking about. How are you feeling so far, Dave? Is it going all right for you?
Yeah, it's going all right. Working from home is definitely an adjustment. My kids are 3.5 and 9 months, and luckily my wife is home to be able to help take care of them during the day. But it is definitely difficult when I have the kids and trying to get work done. My 3-year-old wants to do work on his laptop next to me or make me lunch with his toys or bring me other gifts. And it's great. I love spending time with them, but it is very hard to get work done.
What does he have on the menu for lunch today?
I'm not quite sure. It's probably going to be bananas is what his thing is right now, or goldfish.
Okay, I've heard good things about his bananas, so fingers crossed for you that that's the specialty of the house today.
Yeah, exactly.
Dave, I wanted to pull up some comments from members we're already seeing talking on LinkedIn about this. The first one I wanted to speak to was from Janet. She is a vice president at Marriott Hotels, and I'll give you a minute to catch up to that.
Here we go.
Great. So Janet is talking about running shifts with her partner. They are both trying to work from home right now. They're trying to create 1 to 2 hour blocks so that they can each get into a flow state, actually get some productive work done, versus, say, switching off every 20 or 30 minutes, just trying to catch everything all at once and just make it all work. Unless it's, say, a quick work phone call, that's better at short stints. But I can relate to that, Janet. I mean, even trying to find time for this show was kind of fraught this morning when were my kids going to join me or not? Was my daughter going to put her shoes on to go for a walk or not? It was really down to the wire. We have Sarah, who is the founder of Winnie, which is a marketplace for childcare. So I can only imagine that Sarah is really busy right now and probably facing some really complex discussions with her staff about staffing. If you're a founder of a childcare marketplace, who are your employees? They're probably in high demand, but there's their own considerations about their health and safety. Sarah wants us to be cognizant of the fact that many jobs don't even allow for remote work. Last week, we had an episode with my colleague, Joe My Lord, who was talking about the gig economy, talking about Uber drivers and food delivery people. Sarah wants us to remember doctors and nurses and other professions that you certainly can't work from home, and especially not now when those professions are probably working overdrive. My sister's a nurse, and she's been going into work at 3 and 4 a.m. Every day this week. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It is we're being trying to be a little bit light about working from home with kids and how much of a struggle that is, but also it's a struggle that we're kind of lucky to have because some other parents are in situations where it's not even possible. And I think that's equally stressful, just in a different way. We have a comment from Nima who says something that I also really identify with. It's another silver lining type thing. She's talking about this situation making it, quote, safe for parents to bring up the fact that they have children. I certainly hope that there aren't parents who are whole cloth hiding that they have children at their jobs. But I've experienced myself a little struggle sometimes between understanding where the perfect balance is of how much to talk about them. I fear I don't want to be the person who's constantly talking about kids and leaving early to get kids and then is labeled as someone who's just all about kids, not about the job. But now that we're doing video conferencing with our colleagues, that kids are coming in and out on calls, that there are times where you have to take a break to feed them, et cetera, it's getting impossible for remote virtual workers like this to hide that fact that they have other lives. So I think coming on from this, maybe one bright spot is there might be some kind of shift in the way we understand work-life balance and the grace that we give each other with dealing with whatever we're dealing with, whether it's children, pets, elderly parents, other situations. Our last comment here is from Roger. He's also looking at the bright side. He shares with us that his brother's family were all homeschooled. The children have since graduated from universities, and he sees that they're thriving. So I can imagine that Roger's brother probably had a little bit more time to think about a homeschool situation, to make that decision, to think about how they wanted to do it, than most parents have had just being thrown into this in the last couple of days. But there's bright side. It worked out. We're all going to figure this out together. That's the point of this show. If you are now in the situation of homeschooling, best of luck. Roger's brother did it. We can do it too. And we can do it with the help of each other. There are a lot of resources popping up online to help parents fill the days, both educationally and entertainment-wise for their kids. I'm going to talk about a few of them as Dave pulls up a fabulous video of penguins that maybe you've seen already. But the Cincinnati Zoo is doing a daily life safari. What you're seeing on the video or the photo here is the Shed Aquarium in Chicago. And since visitors aren't coming anymore, they figured they'd let the penguins their fishy friend. So let's just watch this for a moment. The other resources. That's great. I love the camaraderie. The music is very soothing. That's a nice thing, I think, for parents and for kids. Like I mentioned, Cincinnati Zoo also with some great animal content. They've had a porcupine. They've had a hippo. I don't know who's on deck today, but their live streams on Facebook also include activities that parents and children can do together. There's really a ton of stuff. Popular kids author Mo Willems, he has books about pigeons and piggies and ice cream. And if you're a parent, you know who I'm talking about. He's hosting a regular lunch doodle session via the Kennedy Center. My colleagues are going to be sharing some of these links in the stream. So if you're frantically scribbling down in your own doodle session what I'm talking about, take a break for a sec, stay with us in the stream, and you can find some of those links. On a more practical level, Scholastic has stepped up pretty big and has shared some curriculums for school-age kids at every grade level. I already know some parents who are working parents who are digging into that because, my God, how do you homeschool a kid from 0 to 60 in just 3 days, boning up on that kind of information? So there are a lot of resources available, but it's still feeling pretty surreal. So I wanted to bring on a guest today to talk about, let's really get real about this work from home parenting situation. This is Lindsay Powers. Lindsay, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Susie. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Lindsay is the former editor of Yahoo Parenting, who was there for a really long time. She was the founder of the No Shame Parenting movement. And this month she has a book coming out called You Can't F Up Your Kids. It's a fun name for me to say on a live show, but I think I got it, and I think you know what we're talking about. Lindsay, you are working from home with your two boys today. How's it going? Are we going to see them? Are we going to hear from them? How are you feeling?
So my 3.5-year-old is right off camera. He has put both of his feet into one of my shoes and is now jumping around the house, which is okay. It's an activity. It's free. My kids are entertained. He hasn't fallen on his face yet, so you may hear that. Come here, sweetie. Do you want to be on the screen? So, as you said, we're in a kind of a brave new world here. This is not normal time. We are expected to be working from home. We are expected to be homeschooling our children. Yes, that's me. And we have a lot on our plate. Hold on, you can't just talk off screen and not be on the camera. So there goes Batman, who is still in his pajamas at 12:16 p.m. Eastern for us. That's Otto. He's almost 4. So I think the top line takeaway, though, from what all parents are going through right now is we have to be easier on ourselves. I don't know about you, but every social media network I scan is full of these detailed homeschooling plans. And all I can think of is, first of all, how do you know how to do that? Second of all, how are you going to actually pull that off? And I think if this is for you and you are a teacher or you are excited about it, you should totally lean into as much homeschooling or as many activities that excite you. But on the flip side, if you are somebody who is not an educator, not into making this kind of schedule, not really sure how to pull off one of these schedules, you shouldn't feel guilty or shamed because your kids are watching a lot of screen time or playing with toys and don't really have as much of a routine. This is something that's going to take us a little bit of time to get used to. We need to look at it as a marathon, not a race. And we need to be brave enough to try something, say that didn't work, and try to, change our mind the next day. We're kind of all thinking and moving by the seat of our pants here.
Yeah, and some of the moving by the seat of the pants is happening right now in the stream. Well, thank you for joining us. I see David, I see Caitlin, Flavia, Katie, Delaney, Adrian, Janine, Tamara. You're all here. We're hearing a lot of echoing what we're talking about. People saying that flexibility is key with kids, that the work from home with school-aged kids is really hard. Here's a question I wanted to talk to you about anyway, but I'm also seeing from Jessie in the stream. She wants to know, what if parents are nervous about our kids using screens too much? I mean, even outside of the entertainment side of screens, now you're saying you're seeing curriculums, and you earlier we were talking about your son's first grade classroom having a hangout daily every day. So now screens, if you already were having trouble figuring out how to manage that, are going to be part of this homeschooling situation probably. Tell us, should we be freaking out? What do we do?
In a word, no. We should not be freaking out about screens. Look, in my book, I have a whole chapter about screens. And I've examined all the research. I spoke to the pediatrician who co-wrote the American Academy of Pediatric Guidelines that we all refer to as DOGMA. And she, by the way, her kids watch YouTube as well. But she says, and I've seen this too in my research, that a lot of this judgy conversation about screens has nothing to do with what the research shows us. Research shows us that screens are an amazing tool, especially when used in moderation. They can help kids learn more about the world. It is extremely unlikely that your kids will become addicted to screens. I spoke to a neurologist in my book. And just as we are ramping up our screen use now, think of when you take a long flight or your kid is sick and you're like, here's the tablet, honey, or here's 30 episodes of Paw Patrol because I need to do conference calls. We can ramp it down. I think the benefit of this kind of like weird moment is that once it does end and we do go back to normal, which will happen, even though it doesn't feel like it's happening now.
Set up the speaker.
Well, the speaker is in my headphones. I'm sorry. My son is mad because I'm wearing earbuds and he can't hear what I'm saying. He can't hear the interaction. But
I would be mad too. I get it. If you come up on the lap, if you want to switch out of earbuds, do what you need to do. We've got to attend to him as well. That is the reality of this moment, is that they are tugging at you. They want to hear. They want it now. They are not understanding about patience all the time.
Exactly.
that I can help you, but just in 5 minutes. Like, just go for it. Keep going.
Right. Thank you. But when things return to normal, and when they do, it's going to be easy to say to our children, look, we were, when the virus was going around or when the sickness was going around, we had to use a lot of our TVs or we were on our computer a lot. But now that time is over. Let's play. It's just that simple to categorize it. I'm not saying that our kids are going to be like, oh, great. Yeah. I totally never want to watch TV again. They're living their best lives plugged into their tablets and televisions. But we as parents are under a lot of pressure to be our kids' best friends. I think that we can lay down the law a little bit of discipline and say, sorry, no more screens when this is done. But in the meantime, now research shows unequivocally that our kids will all be fine if they're watching extra television or screens. Here are a couple of tips to mitigate all that television. Think of it as a week instead of a day. So if you watch a lot of episodes of Daniel Tiger or whichever show today, try to watch fewer episodes tomorrow. Check in with your kids. Ask them what they're learning. I'm not saying you need to do this after every single show, but just maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And try to connect it to the real world. Like, hey, there's a trolley over there, just like on Daniel Tiger, or something along those lines, so that you're kind of showing how television can be interactive.
Yeah. I actually think Daniel Tiger is educational for adults. I find a lot of lessons in that show that help me be a better parent. But talking about pressure, let's talk about taking breaks. Is it okay? I mean, we're talking about keeping kids occupied and keeping them happy. What about keeping yourself happy and occupied and sane as a parent trying to juggle all of this?
Yeah, I think that we have all stocked our pantries and downloaded education plans, and we've forgotten something vital, which is ourselves in this equation. And self-care is for real. And how can we take care of anyone else if we don't take care of ourselves? Our kids are not going to be negatively impacted if we kind of say, hey, you guys got to go over here and color. Maybe they're going to whine, but maybe they're going to experience boredom and then a little creativity, resiliency. Those are good things. Also, nothing wrong with you taking a break. Maybe you go lock yourself in the bathroom for a couple of minutes, 5, 10 extra minutes. Your kids are going to be fine. Unless they are extremely very young, then maybe you can put them in the bathtub, a really long bath, and you can just kind of like entertain them in the bathtub while you're sitting in there watching, but they are otherwise occupied. I think that we really need to be kinder to ourselves and realize that we need to, like, we're humans too. We're part of this too. We're all a little weirded out by everything that's going on. And like, that's totally fine. And when I say self-care, by the way, this doesn't mean you need to spend $1 bajillion doing whatever. This means that you can read a book, watch a movie. I'm super into Love is Blind on Netflix right now. It's hitting the spot for, just mindless television. So yeah, don't feel like you have to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, I was wondering how fast Netflix could spin up another season of Love is Blind, because I am ready. Talk to me a little bit about preparing meals. You were talking about Instagram perfect curriculums earlier, but how about Instagram perfect meals? I'm talking a lot with colleagues who maybe don't have kids and are therefore glued to their seats all day and they forget to even get up and eat. But when you're responsible for feeding another human to keep them alive, it's not really something you can forget. But junk food, picture perfect meals, like what can be expected when you're already trying to figure everything else out yourself?
Look, research shows that the most important thing with meals is not what's actually on the plate, it's the interaction and the routine. So I don't know, serve your kids cheese and crackers. To serve them, well, actually, my favorite meal to serve my kids is something called the snack meal. You can do a banana, a piece of cheese, some crackers, a cup of milk. You've hit a ton of food groups right there. Because you've called it a snack, your kids will actually eat it. Bonus points if you lay out a blanket on your living room floor and call it the snack meal picnic. I think this is not a time that we need to be putting pressure on ourselves for the perfect meal. Macaroni and cheese is fine. All of the things are fine. Anything in moderation is really the best theory and the way to raise your children. So with all things, don't be hard on yourself. That said, maybe cooking is something that you use to unwind or relax. Well, then lean into that. I don't want to sound like the only way to do that there's only one way to parent your kids during this time period. You have to do what works well for your family, what works well for you and your sanity. And I hope that you take a gut check every once in a while to make sure that you're on track.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You're giving people license to just go easier on themselves. And I think that's really important at this time when everything's so uncertain. Can you talk to me a little bit about community? You're talking about keeping sanity. I think it's easier to accelerate the feeling of insanity when you're afraid you're going to be stuck in your house for months and months and months on end. Talk to me about community and safe ways that we can still interact with people and have our kids interact with people. They learn so much from people outside just the family unit every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a real concern, right? That we're socially distancing ourselves from everyone. So I've been doing a lot of virtual meetups with my friends on FaceTime. You can get a group of people together, or Skype, or whatever video streaming service you have. My kids, my 6-year-old, his first grade class just started doing a daily Zoom where they're gonna interact with each other, and so my 6-year-old is wandering over to, you want to come see? Mommy's talking. So he is going to be able to talk to some folks as well. And I just think it's really important to stay in touch with people as it feels good, but then also on the flip side, to take time for yourself if things get overwhelming, right? So yesterday I took my kids outside to ride their scooters for a couple of minutes and turned off my phone for maybe about an hour, returned 55 text messages and said, you know what, this is also a lot. I want to plug in, I want to support my friends, but I also want to be able to support my mental health and sanity. So don't feel like you can't take a break.
Yeah, thank you for that. Great comments and questions in the stream. I just joining us. We have Delaney. She's very hard. Delaney has a 7-year-old and needs to have time to be creative, and that is really hard when there's screams and fighting happening in the background all the time. We have Katie, who says it's stressful to work from home, and she has kids who are 17 and 20. So that's a whole set of concerns we are not even talking about here. Katie, I would love to hear what your specific stresses are. We're talking a lot about little kids, but teenagers, they probably want to go out and hang out with their friends, and that's a little harder to have them do easily anymore. So we'd love to hear more about what those challenges are, how you're addressing it, how we can help. And speaking of how you can help, Sarah in the stream has a question about what can folks with no kids do to help. Lindsay, do you have any takes on that?
Yeah, I think that people with no kids could just help by, first of all, on a personal level, excuse me, on a personal level can help. My husband is coming over to save the day. This is the joy, and I'm so lucky to have a co-parent right now in the middle of this. I think from a personal level, people without kids can just help by supporting, by checking in, text, thinking of you, hope you're okay. On a professional level, I think people without kids can just have a little bit of empathy about what it's like to suddenly, as a parent, be in a situation where you are trying to be good at your day job and also be good at your home job, and finding a way for those worlds to collide gracefully.
Yeah. Here's one, just touch on this briefly. I'm wrestling with this myself with my 3.5-year-old. Should parents be talking to kids about what's going on here? I mean, I think the answer is yes, but what age and how?
Really, so first of all, age appropriate is really important. Really simple conversation. There's a lot of people who are getting sick right now. We, as your parents, are here to protect you. The best thing that we can do to protect ourselves is wash our hands, which is something you can do. And we're here for any questions. That's it. I think when our children are asking a lot of questions, instead of us digging right into answering all of them, we should ask them, why are you asking that? Because we might be interjecting more fear into them that they had not even thought of. I think age appropriate activities are really important, like that viral pepper test, if you've seen, where you wash your hands, dip your finger in soap, and put it on a plate of water and pepper, and all the pepper spreads. We did that with my 3.5 and 6-year-olds, and that was super helpful, so they could see the importance of washing hands. I think continuing to emphasize, here's how you can help. You can be a community helper by washing your hands is really great for younger children. And I think for older children, it's limiting access to knowledge. just as it can be detrimental to your mental health when you spend hours and hours scrolling and reading every single headline and not take a break, our children are in the same boat. So we want to draw the line between helping them, offering them resources, and not letting them go down the rabbit hole. And, again, for us, I think we need to not put pressure on ourselves to be a perfect parent during this time. If we break down in tears in front of our children, they're not ruined. If we say we don't know the answer, they will be fine. But that's really different than getting hysterical with our kids every day, right? So we want to draw the line. We are allowed to be human and emotional, and that's important because we're giving our children permission to be human and emotional, which I think is a life skill we want to pass down, global pandemic or not. But at the same time, we don't want to be unhinged with our children. So if we find ourselves feeling unhinged, we should rely on some help, whether that is therapy, such as through virtual resources by BetterHelp or Talkspace, which are two apps that allow you to do phone conversations, emails, and virtual video therapy sessions. Perhaps by self-care, as mentioned before, a book, bad TV show, a bath, talking to friends, and just journaling. Taking a moment to take care of ourselves so that we are not passing all of our neuroses onto our children.
Thank you, Lindsay. In thinking of asking for help, I want to ask you one final question, and that is, how should working from home parents ask their employers for help? I think we're seeing everything happen all at the same time at everyone together. So there's a real spectrum of responses employers have had. I think some are really supportive. Some don't even know how to do video conference calling yet, and they have a ways to go. But how can employees talk to their employers? How can they tell them what they need? How can they explain their situation might be different from their colleague with no children? What are some ways that they should talk about that in a way that feels safe and comfortable for them in a time that's probably uncertain? People are worried about layoffs, etc. Our commenter earlier, Nima, was talking about feeling safe. How should working parents be discussing these things and what they need with their employers?
I think that if you are a more senior employee, it is your responsibility to be really open about juggling kids. I mean, I'm not saying you need every dirty detail, but if you are director, VP, a president level, a corporate level, it's super important for you to say, oh, I'm sorry, I have to reschedule that call because I am working with my kids on their math homework for that hour. That sends the message down the chain to everybody who reports up to you that it is okay to spend some time with your children. I'm also a big believer in the ask forgiveness, not permission. When I was editor-in-chief of Yahoo Parenting, I simply started blocking out the times on my calendar that I was unavailable with no explanation. There's a Harvard Business Review study that backs up that parents who quote unquote fake an 80-hour work week are promoted just as much as parents as do not. So if you're feeling unsafe, or if you're feeling like your work environment is not going to fully expect or understand what's going on, and you work in the kind of environment where you're working from home, I think you want to take the focus off my kids, not pretending they don't exist, but perhaps if you know you are going to be unavailable a certain number of hours a day, simply block them off your computer and then go back and sign on when you can, achieve what you can, meet the deliverables you can. I also think that what's happening now is going to change the way that we work in the future. And this is not normal and it's not forever. So while it's kind of scary on like a day-to-day, I guess, to say, I can't work because of my kids, just know that you are not alone. Like everybody is grappling with these issues. So this is something that you can band together and just know that I think that a lot of corporations and companies are also trying to find ways to support their employees as well during this.
That's great. Knowing that we're not alone, I think I needed to hear that today. I think a lot of our viewers needed to hear it. Lindsay, you've been really helpful. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and now I wanted to get to some more things we're hearing from the stream. We are hearing more from Katie, who is reminding us that spring is here. The weather's going to get nicer. We are still in a situation where it's okay to do outdoor things under certain guidance. She is reminding us that everyone's mental health is really important. we need to take care of ourselves too. So echoing some of what we talked about with Lindsay, I think that's great. Patrick is telling me I'm a super person and super mom. Patrick, thank you very much. It's always nice to hear those things. Patrick says that he too is working from a 2-parent family, struggling with balancing work with their 2 rambunctious sons. Patrick, I'm not sure how long you've been in the work from home situation. I've been in it for going on 2 weeks now, and I gotta say this week feels a little bit better than last week, but I can imagine there's only going to be more challenges, different challenges every day. So right now I'm grateful that it's feeling a little bit easier than before. I hope it still feels a little easier tomorrow and the next week. But I think the new normal is there isn't quite a normal. I would love to get my son from 2 naps to 1 nap consistently, but every day is different. We have David, who is agreeing with some what Lindsay was saying, is like, let kids be kids. I think what she was saying about age-appropriate information is really important. All of us, as she was saying, scrolling too much information overload can get really panicky, and I think that's a really important thing to think about with kids too, is managing some of their information flow, asking them questions, making sure they're feeling okay. I think that's it for today's show. I'm so glad that you guys and gals stopped by to be with us and got into the stream. Keep asking us your questions. Keep telling us what's going on with you. Use the hashtag on LinkedIn, Business Unusual. We will be back tomorrow at noon. Caroline Fairchild will be hosting, and she's going to be talking about things from a CEO's point of view. She will have some great guests on, and we want to see you back here then. So please tune in. Thank you so much, and stay safe out there.